Welcome to CMCAN, our first event. Climate mobility, what is it? Why should it matter? So, I would like to introduce our moderator, Rabish, to start us off, and thank you so much for coming.
Hello, everyone. It's really nice to have you all on board on our first event. Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Rabish, and I am an event and programs assistant at the Climate Mobility Community Action Network (CMCN), which focuses on climate mobility and displacement by amplifying the voices of those directly impacted. We prioritize collaboration, education, and action through a diverse and inclusive approach. Thank you so much for attending this event, which signifies a standpoint for CMCN, and it's the start point for our launch. I believe this is our first event, and it's not going to be the first event. We have a lot more coming right away, and we would be very happy to see you participating in our coming and future events. This event actually is going to be titled Climate Mobility and What is it? Why should you care? You all should you care. The focus of the event is to talk about the work CMCN is doing and to talk about the climate mobility in the context of advocacy. We want also to explore today's event on what climate mobility is, its impacts, and what role does advocacy have to play in addressing the effects of climate mobility and displacement. Our event features actually three amazing climate activists and speakers who are really experts and doing a great work in this space. I would like to welcome from Pong from Ghana, Taiba from Dubai, Bosco from Kenya. All the three activists will be giving either a presentation or statement on climate mobility and how to create an impact in this space. And I believe you all are going to have a wealth of knowledge and you will really enjoy this event with us today. Okay, before we start introducing our guest speakers, let's just have an introduction about Sam Khan, and I will pass it off to our founder and executive director to present a bit about our network and to give you some information about what we do and what we are going to be doing today. So I'll pass the mic to Olivia Karp, please. It's with you.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. It's great to have you here. I'm trying to speak as loudly as I can due to the fact of how my microphone kind of goes in and out. So if it sounds like I'm yelling, it's because I'm just trying to make sure my microphone works. Once again, thank you so much for coming to our event. It's a great pleasure to see you all here. So I'll just kind of go more in depth about CMCM and what we're about. So please just kind of bear with us. So when it comes to CMCM, CMCM is a very unique organization focusing on climate mobility and displacement. Our work seeks to amplify the voices of those directly impacted. We basically prioritize this through collaboration, education, and action through a diverse and inclusive approach. We are actually only 10 years old. We started back in December, but now we have grown into a whole leadership team with about 70 people from different parts of the world, and then we have 6 people who are on our board of directors. So when it comes to kind of how you guys can get involved and what's more about Sam, basically you can kind of help support Team Sam, yourself, and stuff like that. But this really kind of comes down to our values, mission, and vision. Our values, mission, and vision. So when it comes to that, is essentially we are a nonprofit. We are federally registered nonprofit in Canada. It really works to bring about the diverse voices of CMCM and ensure that they have a seat at the table and that we're collaborative. When it comes to our mission, that really in tied with our values is through collaboration, participation, as well as educating those who are on the front lines, but also on the sidelines when it comes to climate mobility and displacement advocacy. So there's some things that I would like to kind of tell you more about CMCM and what we're about. If you're okay, I just want to kind of go over like what this event is about. So just give me a second to kind of find that slide here. I'm just gonna have to stop sharing because for some reason the slides are a little bit all over. So sorry about that. Just give me 1 minute here. So I'm just gonna kind of now just reshare my screen when it comes to the agenda because this is just so crucial for our event because I really just want to go over what we're doing and kind of what the point of the event is. So essentially, kind of for this is we're actually be going into we're gonna have three speakers today: Kayaba, Frimpong, and Bosco. So Frimpong is actually going to give a quick presentation about climate relate and displacement, as well as kind of talking about the advocacy part about that. And then we're going to have Kayaba and Bosco essentially give kind of statements about how climate relate is impacting them and their regions, as well as a call to action on climate mobility. Once again, thank you so much for joining, and back to you, Rabish.
Thank you so much, Olivia, and for shedding the light on this slight bit information about Samsan and the event. And I hope everybody would really enjoy what we are hiding for you today. And as my colleague Olivia walked you through the event agendas, let's now get to the most important part, getting to know our speakers, because the speakers, and I will not actually talk about them because I'll just leave it to them all to talk about themselves. So starting from Taiba, please, the mic is all yours. Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Taiba Jamil. I'm young advocate for climate change and specifically climate mobility. I have recently just submitted my dissertation of gendered nature of climate mobility. So yeah, that's all from my side. I will be talking more when it's come to me. Please, next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Taiba. Thank you so much. It's really nice to see you and nice to meet you. Let's now go with Frampong. Please, the mic is all yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rabish. Yeah, so my name is Rampong Nyako, and I originally come from Ghana and then moved to the Netherlands for my master's. And then I work with IOM and other organizations related to climate mobility. I'm very happy to be here now. Very glad to talk more about my experiences and how we could all contribute as activists.
Thank you, Frampong. It's really nice to meet you. Jumping to our last guest speaker, and last but not least, Mr. Bosco. The floor is all yours.
Yes, hello, greetings everyone. So I'm Bosco Kavisu from Kenya, and I'm happy to be here actually as we inaugurate this event. So I'm a computer engineer from Kenya, and I'm the Secretary General and co-founder of African Trailblazers.
Thank you so much, Busco. And I believe once you have your part to talk and give your participation on climate mobility, people are going to really get to know you. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you so much for attending. I can see that participants are still joining, and I hope they're going to catch up with our event. We have just already started, and I believe there are some. I can see in the chat that some new joiners have the name of Olivia Karp. If they can just rename themselves and give their names, because there was just a small technical issue. So if you can just rename yourself, we would be very happy to get to know you, because we once you participate, we would like to know your names. Plus, those the new joiners, if you can just tell us where are you joining us from, we'd be very happy to know that. Thank you so much. Let's now get into the program itself of the event of today. We are going to have our first participation, or our first part with Mr. Frampong, who will give a brief presentation about his background in climate mobility and activism. I will leave the floor to Mr. Frampong to start his presentation. You will be having 5 to 7 minutes to present. Thank you so much, all, and I hope you enjoy the part with Mr. Frampong. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Rabish. Let me start sharing my screen. Yeah, so thank you so much for this opportunity. And this afternoon or morning, or even depending on where you are, we'll be having a conversation on the warming world and moving people and the role of informed activism in addressing climate mobility. Yeah, so this is the outline for my presentation. So I will start by introducing myself and give a rundown of my background in climate mobility. And afterwards, we'll look at some tips, some information on climate mobility, and then we'll move on to the activism, and then we'll conclude. Okay, so to begin, my name is Frimpong Nyako, and as I said, I did my master's in urban environmental management, and later on I joined Deltares in the Netherlands to work on the Africa Climate Mobility Initiative. So the Africa Climate Mobility Initiative is a program by the Global Center for Climate Mobility, and one of the organizations they collaborated with was Deltares, and I got the privilege to be part of the team, and it was really impactful. And then I also work with the International Organization for Migration in South Sudan to address displacement there. And I'll talk a bit more on that later. Okay, so to start with climate mobility, I think to speak meaningfully of climate mobility, it's important for us not to see climate mobility as one uniform general kind of movement. So we can divide the movement into two main types, depending on the degree of agency. So on the left, as one extreme side, we have forced mobility or climate forced mobility. And in this case, the degree of agency is very low. As you can see in the image there, this is the aftermath of floods, and they've been displaced. And so with this kind of displacement, it's very sudden. People don't have a lot of time to prepare. And so the degree of agency is very low. And this movement the duration tends to be short. And then on the other end of the continuum, we also have migration or climate-induced migration. And over here, on the right-hand side, I took this picture with some pastoralists in Ghana. And with this kind of movement, it's not very sudden compared to forced mobility. People tend to have a bit more degree of agency compared to forced mobility. Okay, so imagine the scenario where, let's say, an area comparable to the size of the Netherlands covered with floods for a year, for 2 years, and even 3 years. So I think when we mention climate mobility, this is the kind of scenario that comes to mind. And it's already happening now. So I took this image from South Sudan, and there's a place called Bentiu in the United States, and almost the entire state, which is very huge, like the South Sudan has been covered in floods. So the area that you see now is not a lake, it's not a river, but flood that has covered the place for more than 3 years. And it's been very devastating. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced. And so one point I would like to make is that often when we mention climate mobility, we tend to imagine that will be the scenario everywhere. But no, that's not how it's going to be everywhere. So as I mentioned earlier on, in some cases, there will be some sort of the movement will not be that sudden like this. And on some ends, we may have sudden movement. And so climate change affects mobility by affecting existing patterns of movement like economics, the economy, social factors, and this will affect people's decision to move. And so one point I would like to emphasize is that it's not always the case that a climate impact will cause people to move. Sometimes the climate impact can force people to stay. And this is also something we need to bear in mind. So it's not always the case that if people are moving, it's bad, or if people are staying, they are doing well. Some situations may be helpful to support people to move out of harm's way. In some situations, too, it may not be necessary for people to move. So we need to be flexible with that. And so in my work whilst I was supporting the Africa Climate Mobility Initiative with Deltares, we look into the governance of climate mobility on the international level, the regional level, and the local level in Ghana. And whether climate mobility is governed or it's not governed depends on how you look at it from. So it's like a cup of water. It can be half full or half empty. And one thing we notice is that there's no formal, or within the UN system, there's no formal explicit system that directly governs climate mobility. So on the explicit level, the formal level, which is backed by law, there's not much going on. But we also have the embedded level, and that is referring to other policy areas. So the activities in other policy areas like development, like human rights, and these activities have implications for climate mobility. So with climate mobility governance, there's more going on in the other level. And also on the informal level, these are activities which are not very binding. And so as an activist or aspiring activist, one thing you can take up is which of these areas would you want to be more involved in? And then there are also some narratives on climate mobility, which we need to also bear in mind. So some of the ones I'd like to mention is that sometimes we hear in the media climate refugee, but in reality, there's nothing like climate refugee because the international law for refugee doesn't recognize people who have been displaced by climate factors to be known as refugees. And two, we shouldn't frame migration as a problem to be solved. So as I mentioned, sometimes migration may be good, and we may even need to encourage people to even move out of harm's way. So we need to bear in mind some of these nuances. So I remember doing some of my works with policymakers and researchers. One question I faced was that some Ghanaian government official said that climate migrants are human beings just like everyone else. So why should we have special policy for them? So as an activist, you may come across such questions because climate mobility it's not really prioritized by many governments because they don't see it as something that needs more attention. So one thing you should start thinking of how you could convince people, government officials to start developing specific policies for them. And I think later on in this session, we will have more conversations on that. And so to conclude, as I said, our words and motivations matter. And so I remember our girl said that by the latter part of the decade, the North Pole will be ice-free, but it did not happen. This gave people who are climate skeptics freedom to just trash the climate change crisis and gave them leverage to believe that, oh, the climate crisis is just something people want to use to deceive people, but it's not. So that means the point I want to make is that we should be mindful of our words. So there are some people who make predictions that 1.2 billion people will be climate refugees. But I think those narratives, we need to be careful about those kinds of narratives because they tend not to help. Because when it happens, we get to 2050 and such people do not move. People are not going to take us serious. So I will end my presentation here and we will have more conversation on this later. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Frampong, for bringing this presentation. It's really enlightening, and I believe it triggers everyone to deepen their knowledge about climate mobility. I believe it's a very wide and huge topic that everybody needs to know about, and they need actually to let's say enrich their knowledge about it. What you gave, I believe, it's a spark for us all, not only those present, but all of us to advocate for this and to deepen our knowledge about it. Thank you so much. It's really so enlightening.
Okay, hello everyone once again. My name is Saiba Jamil. Thank you, Abish. Thank you, Olivia, for organizing such a wonderful event. I'm so happy that so many people are interested in knowing what climate mobility is because relatively as compared to other climate aspects, this is very new concept. Um, so my interest in this field came from my employment with Embassy of Denmark as a political officer, where I have worked on multiple climate projects as well as climatic events, floods, and all of that stuff. Later, I joined Yango, and there I met Olivia, and now I'm part of climate mobility community. So yeah, it's a great journey. My concern started when I saw monsoon flooding in Pakistan, which displayed around 33 billion of people. And these people are already vulnerable. They are living in the small area, villages where they already have a lot of socioeconomic burden. And then flood even increased that burden. Later, when I moved to UAE, I saw that how the country which has never seen rainfall has suddenly started seeing floods on its roads, feeling earthquakes. It literally shows that the science or um, the proof of climate mobility is getting more evident. So for that, I really want that we all come together and we all see how this is very real problem. So our call, just like any other speakers, is very similar. We need to have more resilient infrastructures. We need to have more better climate adaptation strategies. We need to have more strengthened migration policy, both on local and international level. And as well as, I also want to highlight that gender is very important aspect in this phenomena, because women and men both are witnessing climate mobility very differently, both on social, economic, and political level. So we need to include gender in these policies. We need to have more people start talking about it. We need to have recognition of climate refugees, climate migrants, because now it's very evident every region is facing it. So why not to start acting on it today, to save our future and to work for our future generations? That what I would like to say, and encourage you all to, start playing your part. Whatever you can do it. Even if you can do a social media activism, do for it. Go for it, because this is real problem. This is not a joke anymore. This is not just one region facing it. It's all of us eventually going to fall a victim to it. So yeah, that's all from my side. I really hope this event, the great event which Olivia and the team has organized, will really motivate you to search for it, what is climate mobility, and keep on working towards it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Taibo, for bringing this. It's so like inspirational that you gave. It's so really moving us. It moves everybody to get to know climate mobility more and more. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll leave now the floor to Busco. Please, the floor is all yours.
Okay, so my name is Bosco Kavisu. I'm a youth leader, and I've been privileged to work with initiatives and as well non-governmental organizations across Africa. And I've led initiatives for the sustainable development, that's SDGs, the 17 ones, as everyone knows. So which is one is Africa SDG. I've worked with the International Christian Youth Work. I've also been in a national charity group, Jikubali Africa, and some of the technology initiatives which are actually undergoing covering the climate action solutions. So my journey into climate mobility advocacy just began with witnessing the profound impacts that climate change is having on communities. Like particularly in Africa, I've seen firsthand how climate-induced displacement is reshaping lives, from floods displacing entire villages. Actually, in West Africa, to droughts forcing migration also in East Africa, like recently we saw in Zambia where there was drought. Now they are killing the those old animals to feed their people. So that is making them to also misplace and also mobile the movement of it due to the drought. So this issue of climate mobility isn't just about people moving from one place to another. Actually, it's about survival and the adaptation and also the justice. So, as young people like us have a critical role in shaping this narrative, because we are the ones who will inherit the planet and the crises that come with it. That's why I'm advocating for a call to action. So we must prioritize the climate adaptation measures to protect those displaced by climate impacts, and also in areas where displacement is inevitable. So we need to ensure that communities have access to resources and infrastructure that allow them to rebuild their lives with dignity. So my call to action is focusing on enhancing local adaptation strategies so that not only mitigate the displacement but also support those already affected. For example, in areas facing desertifications, investing now in sustainable agricultural practices and water conservation can help communities actually stay on their lands. This combined with something like policy reform and youth-driven innovation can bring about real change. So by forming your own call to action today, you are not just advocating for a cause, you are also providing a solution. So the work we do now will shape the future of millions of people. So it's time we live with urgency and resilience and hope. This is a good platform, Olivia, and we hope to go on advocating for this mobility. So I'm thankful for that presentation. Thanks so much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Bosco. And thank you for the great work you're doing, the activism that you're doing back there in your country. And I believe it can be a lesson learned that for every one of us that to get inspired by the work you're doing. And I hope that you can also share your journey on social media, and we can also like have this journey shared to our networks. It's so amazing and so inspiring. Thank you so much.